Welcome again to another episode of the Voices for Voices TV show and podcast. I am Justin Allen Hayes, founder and executive director of Voices for Voices. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you if this is your first episode or if you've been with us the whole ride through our catalog, which we're at, I believe, we're at 210 episodes when this will air. So we can't do that without you. So if you can give us a thumbs up, you can like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. We would appreciate that. And we have our guest who's been gracious to stick around for a second episode so he can learn more about his experience as an author and inspiring others. So joining us for this episode is author Gabriel Bloor. Thank you for joining us again.
Thank you for having me again, Justin.
Yeah,
And to pick up where we left off, one of the things you mentioned was going into talking a little bit about being into my mind as an author.
yeah,
And that's something I want to talk about, and something I do believe it is really misunderstood about authors. People think writing a book is easy. Some people think writing a book is easy. And when they realize it's not easy, that's why they use AI to do it for them. And as I said in the last episode, I may use Chat GPT, but I never have it write it for me. Now, will I have it write a snippet of something, of an idea that I'm working on? Yes, but I don't use that actual snippet in my story. What I'm looking for is stimuli. I'm looking for how something is described, how something is discussed. If I have not experienced something like smoking, for example, I'll probably ask chat about what happens, what goes on, the stimulus of doing such a thing. I mean, granted, I didn't ask at the time. I had asked several church members that I knew that did smoke. Um, but the whole point of it was that I'm looking for specific details. There are authors out there that do one of two things. They're either super detailed, where they control the reader's mind of what they're seeing, and then you have the other authors that either are somewhat vague or they don't give enough detail. And I've come across both on the spectrum. What I like to do personally is I like to give enough detail for you to get an idea what's going on, but I like to introduce little details, little quirks that are meaningful, but sometimes would be considered overlooked. And the reason why I do this is because it gives you a different perspective. I don't know if you've heard of him, but one of my favorite Christian rappers is NF. And in one of the songs that he sung, I can't remember which one, he said, aim at my reflection, shatter my perspective, my perception. And perception and perspective have similar meanings, but that has been my biggest thing as an author for the past 4 years is perspective. What is the perspective of this? I would say to myself. And I would take said perspective and I would change it. Um, a lot of my books for the past 4 years have been about different perspectives. You have to look carefully, but I put a lot of false Christian theology in said books and I refute them. And not refute them in a way where it says this is wrong or this is bad. I show the issue in said thing. For an example, we've all heard of Bible thumpers, right? In my novel Cloud's World of Chaos, I put Bible thumpers in there. I put a pastor in there who did not like being questioned because it felt like they questioned his authority. I put a mindset in Cloud's World of Chaos that is common in many of our churches. And I showed from a lost person's point of view just how damaging that is, just how much that causes issues. But with that said, I did bring a Christian character who I based off of, like Moses, like Noah, like the judges during the split between the kingdoms of, like the judges before the rise of the kingdom of Israel. I had that one righteous who lived for Christ, and I wrote him in such a way where he's not perfect, but there is a heart sold out to serve Jesus. And I did this specifically because I'm trying to point out the difference between man's doctrine and actually living for Christ. Because we both know they conflict. Because man's word is fallible. Man's word is finite. God's word is true, is perfect, and will last eternity. Like I said, he's not perfect. He has problems. I mean, I specifically gave him a split personality based off of the battle we have of the flesh and spirit, which was a lot of fun, like way too much fun for my personal opinion. But that's why I write the things I write. I do the things I do. I mean, my a lot of my books that I have coming out, every last 30 of them, and there might be more by the time I publish the next one, is that sometimes I will write from the lost person's point of view. I don't go the traditional routes of how a person is saved in a book. I don't. Do I always say, and I'm not the kind of Christian where you just pray and then all of a sudden magically everything gets better. No, that's not reality. It's not at all. And I have a hard time reading so many Christian books is because, oh Lord, please save me. And I do not write for rainbows and unicorns. If you're looking for a feel-good book, bypass me by all means. I invite you. Reading my books is a war zone. I go into the nitty-gritty. I talk about blood, I talk about guts, I talk about gore. And yes, there are snapping necks, beheadings, blood everywhere. I do not sugarcoat nothing at all. You ask the hard question, I will give you the hard answer. I got a book. It's called Possessed. You can tell where this is
Mm.
going. If you've heard of The Exorcist,
Yeah.
you can't say it's the same thing, but it was. I have not seen The Exorcist. I haven't read the book, but there was, you know about Romans when
Yes.
Paul was casting out demons, and some of the Pharisees were like, "Oh, well, we can do that too. By Paul's God, we say, come out of this person." And the demon looks at the Pharisee and goes, "I know Paul. I know Jesus. Who are you?"
Mm.
And that's my point in the book Possessed, is that my main character is a Christian. There is a demon possessed woman in a underground morgue, and my main character's partner is like, I can prove to you that you trying to be celibate, waiting for the right woman is wrong. I mean, I go into some sexual immorality. Now, I do not describe
Mm-hmm.
any of that because that's disgusting and we don't need any of that. I'm showing that there are people out there that will say being promiscuous is okay, pastors included. And what happens is that she gathers all these religious leaders. I mean, I got an imam in there. I got a Catholic priest. I got a pastor, Baptist, Methodist, Lutheran. I have 12 that go in there. And this one pastor, a Baptist pastor of this mega church, he's got thousands of people. And he specifically goes to my main character and saying, your partner's fine. It's okay to be all right. Jesus covers all that. And when they get to the underground, when they meet the demon possessed woman, I have a confession to make. Originally, she was going to be naked. And I don't say that with pride. I was like, Lord, I can't do this. I can't do that. This is a whole new level. This is a whole new level. And I actually fought with God over this book. I really did. It so bad it made me sick. And then I spoke to my mother, and she gave me some very good insight on what boundaries I have to put into place when you deal with said issues. And once I spoke to my mother, once I spoke to my father, my father is the pastor of the church I go to, I felt at ease. And then I was prepared to take the next step to write this book. So she wears a thin white gown that is stained with blood. This pastor of this mega church approaches her, puts his hand on his shoulder, and says, "In the name of Jesus," that commanding voice, "I command you to come out of her." And he smiles, and she looks at him and says, "Who are you?" Rips his head off. And it follows suit with basically everybody else, except for my main character. The difference is, and what I'm trying to display, is that there's a difference between someone who acts like they live for Christ and the person who actually does. My main character, even though had the pastor of the mega church blabbing in his ear, even though he's got temptation all around him, he's like, no, no, I will not go this route. I will not do this. Here is the line in the sand. This is my flag. I will go no further. I started that book in 2022. I haven't finished it yet, but the ending is still in my head. If I sat down long enough, I could probably finish it. But I have all these other things that I'm working on, so it will be done eventually. I probably will end up changing the title. I think the word possessed is used a bit too much, and I want to disassociate from the other things that are out there. But what I'm trying to say is that I bring a new food group to the table. I am not the kind of author out there who's going to write about unicorns and rainbows. If there are unicorns, they're probably out there to eat you. Praying to God is not going to make everything in life become magically perfect. I have most of my characters come from rough backgrounds. They had some kind of family issues. They have some kind of mental illness. They deal with some kind of problem. They have some form of heartache. They're all going through something. The reason why I do that is because nobody's perfect. Nobody is going to have their life all put together. I had a church member loan me a book, and she says, "You're going to like this. It's dark. It's creepy." I read it. I was bored. I'm not going to mention the author. I'm not going to mention the book. It wasn't boring because it wasn't written well. In fact, it was written pretty good. It was decent. The action was tasteless. The what's the word? The stakes weren't high enough. Oh, sure. Was the man's adopted son going to die if he didn't do the one thing that he spent his entire life not wanting to do because the enemy has his son? Yeah, that's pretty high. No, that wasn't enough for me. It wasn't enough. There was no, "Oh, great, my legs got blown out. I have to crawl 20 feet to go do this one thing." I'm not saying to be a great author in my eyes, you have to do said thing. No, if you want to be a good author in my eyes, write about the pain. No, don't give me white exploding pain that erupts in my brain. No, 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 no. Give it to me mentally. Attack, invade my mind in such a way that if I put the book down, it hurts. That's what I do. Um, we both know him, David Solomon. Is him and his wife are reading my book, The Guardian Circle, which is one of the first books I have finished in the past 4 years. It is the first book I managed to finish in a very long time. The first book that I finished when I was 13, is one that will never get published. One, because I lost it, and two, it wasn't the greatest. But I'm willing to admit that.
Yeah.
David and his wife, it was actually Amanda who said, "This is like watching a movie because of how I did it." It drew them in. David ended up telling someone he knew that the Guardian Circle is dark. That was a drop in the bucket. How I write, it is with the first person, with the little details. When my character in the Guardian Circle, Pericles Vanguard, when he falls out of that building and lands in the dumpster and scrapes his knee across the barred handle of a bicycle, you shirk back in pain because it gets you too. When he has to go, because my character Pericles has PTSD from an accident that killed both of his parents, when he sees his mom get ran over again in his mind, but as an adult, you automatically jump back. You're like, what? How? One, she's already supposed to be dead, and two, why is she coming after him? When I write a story, it's an invasive species. It's meant to not attack the reader as in a way where I'm going after you. It's meant to attack the reader in such a way where it questions their perspective on life. Is what we think real, real? Two, is what we believe real? Because we all have a standard of what we think God is, and we always stick him in this box. And I made that very evident in the Guardian Circle. I made that very evident in Project Chrysalis. I made that very evident in Cloud's World of Chaos. But is it true? The answer is no. And that's my point. That's always been my point. I draw in readers. I don't take them by the hand and say, let's go on an adventure. I'm usually the guy who walks in the interrogation room and cracks the knuckles and go, I will break you. It's on my bio. If you read my bio, warning, warning, warning. This is a war zone. But I greet every one of them as a soldier because they're not for the faint of heart. It's dark. My father told me 4 years ago, Gabriel, no Christian publisher is going to want your books. You're too dark. 5 Christian publishers later, I get taken in by a secular publisher. My father wasn't wrong. Excuse me. My father wasn't wrong. I am very dark. I'll ask the hard question. I will give the hard answer. I'm not scared. In one of my books, as much as I hate to say it, one of them's going to get raped. And that's not to show, I'm not divulging into the evil of it. I'm showing it, not in great detail, but I'm showing how you can walk through that. I'm showing how God can come alongside you in that. I show the sin of my characters. I don't make them perfect. Even within Cloud's World of Chaos, the one righteous character, his name is Eleftherios, which is Greek for freedom. I told you he has a split personality, and it represents the flesh of our bodies and the spirit of Christ that is within us. They are constantly conflicting each other. And there are times where Eleftherios' voice will change when Grim, his second personality, comes in. Grim evolves. At first, he's just like this mindless killing thing that wants to lay waste to everything he touches. His voice is sporadic, and it's like, I want to kill. I must have death. And Eleftherios like, no, you won't. And then Grim changes, and he goes, well, now it's my turn. It's the complete flip. It's from the mindless killer to the methodical predator. And it's all to show a point. Mindless rage is easily controlled by someone else, is easily manipulated. Methodical? It's almost impossible. That is what I do. I'm currently have schizophrenia in my head, so eventually I'm gonna have a book out there with the character that's schizophrenic. Um, a lot of my stories, I am a big fan of monsters. All kinds of monsters. I got a book I'm writing. It's got Elden Ring vibes in it. That Dark Souls, those twisted, decrepit monsters, the different kinds of gods, the oh so powerful prophets, and then you have this little man with a sword that's going, "Watch me beat every last one of you. I don't care how many times you respond." But there's a point in that book. It's called The Forsaken Monarch, The Broken Crown. The title is The Forsaken Monarch. Jesus is supposed to be king over this world, but he was forsaken as ruler. The Forsaken Monarch. In the book, Christ is known as the divine breath, who my character is a follower of. Each piece fits in. Do I always say that Jesus Christ is in the story? No, I don't. Do I always have my character say, "Oh, well, oh, God, help me"? No, I don't. I'll tell you why. It's become cheesy. I struggle watching Christian movies, depending on what it is, because how it's done, it's so cheesy. The way they say it, the way they act, it puts a bad taste in my mouth. It's like, why? It is, I can't say it's blasphemy because I'm pretty sure they have the best intentions. But there are some Christian movies I've watched out there. It's like, this isn't fit to watch. This, it is pretty bad. I have to watch children Christian TV shows that I find more soul fulfilling because it has that desire to live for Christ, that desire to show his love, than the more adult ones because they're so horrible to me. Now, everyone has their own opinion, but I write my books very similar. My father writes his sermons. If I will take out the actual scripture and put it in my story. Now, do I quote scripture specifically? I do not, but there are paraphrases, there are hints. There is segments where you go, "Wait a minute. Didn't Jesus say that? Wait a minute. Didn't Paul do that? Wait a minute. Why does he look like one of the prophets of the Old Testament?" That is what I do. Because I will not put man's doctrine alongside of Christ's teaching. They don't go together. They don't mix because mankind has their own bias. I have my own bias. My bias is that if it's not Christ, if it's not Christ as Christ is king, I don't want to hear any buts. Christ is king, matter of fact. Does that mean I'm perfect in how I follow Christ? No way. No way. I'm human like everybody
Yeah.
else. That doesn't mean I'm gonna die trying. That doesn't mean I don't struggle writing certain segments. um, but I will say, I've had quite a few of my church members, a handful of my church members, read some of my books because I want the feedback. It's hard for me to get feedback because as a darker author, it is difficult. Not every I lost somebody that I thought was a friend because they considered me too dark as a writer.
Mm.
It's hurt, but please don't pity me. It's in the past. I'm not going to let it ruin my future. But I had a church member read a couple snippets of my books that I had prepared. She comes back to me, she hands me the folder and says, "Gabriel, I have never read a Christian author who wrote a walk to salvation in the way you have." And it's not because of me. It's not. It's because I didn't want it to be cheesy. I didn't want it to feel like, oh, it's another feel good nature and oh, I'm saved and now I can live however I want, or now I must live this life and blah 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 and blah, blah, blah. No, no, no. You don't always feel a change when you become saved. You don't always feel different. But I will say, when you do actually accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, there is a weight that comes off. And it's a matter of what that weight is. I wrote it to you in my email. When I
Mhm.
got saved, before I was saved, I realized just how alone I would be for all of eternity without Christ. So when I asked the Lord to come in my life, I said, Lord, I don't want to be alone. Did I have to be reminded of it years ago? Yeah, I did. That's because I kind of lost my way. And that happens. But I knew, I know I'm saved because I know no matter what, I'm not alone. I have Christ within me. Now, does it always feel like I'm not alone? No, because I'm human. I'm going to
Mhm.
get where I feel lonely kind of things, but I know if I open up my Bible, I will find Christ. I know if I look within the spirit that was given to me, I will find Christ. And that is what I did. That's what I wrote in Project Chrysalis. The weight and guilt, the anger my character felt was washed away. The weight was lifted off her shoulders. In my other book, where my character became saved, Pericles, he felt alone like I did. He felt forgotten. He had no family of his own. His parents were killed in a car accident. He had no friends. He had a brain tumor that went from his frontal lobes to the back of his head. He should have died. That's probably one of the only books that I have ever written where the prayer is said once and then answered the next day. I did that for a reason. I was making a point. You see, some people say, "Oh, miracles were of the past." No, they're not. They just don't come the way we think they will. One of the things I did in the Guardian Circle is Pericles sees this Christian family. The pastor of his church is married to his therapist, who's also a Christian, who also ends up becoming his wife at the end of the book. They're all Christians. They all go to the same church, obviously, because they're a family. The point of it is that he sees a difference in their life. He sees a light in their eye. He sees a hope. That's what he wanted. In each of my books, if my main character isn't the Christian, and there's a side character who is, there's always a hope. There's always a light. With Cloud's World of Chaos, I described it as a black candle that as the wick melts, it melts gold. Because we still have the flesh. We still will sin, but as we live for Christ, it says so in the Bible. As the heat of the world comes against us, what's it going to be? Wood, hay, and stubble, or gold, silver, and precious gems? So even before my main character in Cloud's World of Chaos met the man that was going to be that candle in the dark for her, God was telling her he was coming. And that at one time he was going to get snuffed out. But again, that light would return. That's what I do.
That's incredible. Thank you for being so transparent and describing it in such detail. It's it, it really just takes us, the viewer, the listener, into the mind of you and what it takes and all the different ways how connections are made, and some we talked about last episode of how we could have something stewing in our mind, and then an event, something happens, and it's like, oh yeah, I'm going to bring that back in here, and we're going to connect it and do that. So I think that along with just explaining, getting that feedback is critical. I think being an author, just being a person in business or what have you, getting that feedback is always a helpful thing uh, to get. Uh, the last thing I just wanted to ask, we got about 3 minutes left,
Oh,
is
wow. Oops.
no, this is good. Trust me, I like it much better when the guests talk and less me talking. So this has been uh absolutely fine. Like I said, I prefer that, and our viewers and listeners do too. So uh when it comes to you mentioned different authors and getting feedback, how important is that if there are, I don't know, there's groups out there. How important is that, being able to bounce those ideas off others in electronic form, as well as like you said when you were at church, um, you know you handed paper
Mhm.
copy of what you had. Can you speak to if individuals see groups out there, what
There
that can do?
there are a lot of groups out there. I mean, whenever I look on Facebook, it's always, hey, look, there's this authors group, and then there's this authors group, and then there's this authors group, and this is a Christian authors group, and I'm like, boring, 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 boring. And it's not because they probably have no interest of me. It's just I am not your common Christian author at all. I'm not even your typical pastor's son. It's I have a whole different I hope this comes out the right way. I'm my own entity as a person and as an author. I am literally waiting for people who are going to pick up my book and write a view about how much they hate it. I'm waiting for it.
Yeah.
I'm expecting it. And my mind, you're going to get that. And that's something that needs to be something that needs to be known. There are going to be people who are going to pick up your book and hate just to hate because they're miserable. You can write the next Tolkien series. It doesn't, please don't do a Tolkien ripoff. Don't. I cannot believe I did a little research of how many Tolkien ripoffs there were, and I was like, are you kidding me? And that surprised me because I was like, am I the only author out there that writes original stories, that writes original characters, that writes original backstories? It's like, come on, we need to get more in tuned with the person. We're not reading about Tolkien, we're reading about you. And so my point is that sometimes being in these groups, it's a hit or miss. A lot of them for me have been misses. I'm better off just asking my friend, or because he actually doesn't write dark and doesn't really go into horror,
Mhm.
I ask my sister, or I'll ask my father, or I'll talk to my grandmother, or I'll talk to different people at church. I'll talk to David. Um, I have a couple of people on Discord that I talk to. I mean, I got a live stream video gamer to read one paragraph of one of the games that I'm making. He's like, just from this paragraph, I know you're a good writer.
Wow.
I have like 3 streamers waiting for my book to come out. And that's one of the things that killed me is that you'll have people that will tell you, we can't wait for you to get published. And then you're like, all right, let's go get a publisher. And I'm telling you, that is going to be a stab to the heart when you get turned down.
Mm.
It's a hit or miss. It's a hit or miss with publishers. It's a hit and miss with groups. And for me, actually, groups have become more of a hindrance for me because I'm still in college. As I said, I'm getting
Mhm.
my bachelor's in psychology. I'm working on psychology. I'm the second eldest son to 7 siblings. We live on the church ground. I have a part-time job. I am the custodian of the church I go to. I'm the Sunday school teacher. I help my mother around the house. I help my mother when it comes to the homeschooling. I help take
Mhm.
care of the dogs. I help with certain church members. I got large plate. I talk to all these people. I try to help other authors. I try to help other gamers. I do what I can all over the place. So I kind of get really, really full. So I find them more of a hindrance, but that's me personally.
Mm-hmm.
What my best advice is that talk to the people you're close to, friends, family members. Find out what they like, find out what they enjoy. And then go to said person about an idea. With what you know about said person, bounce the ideas that you know most closely relate to said person. Um, David doesn't really go into horror. David Solomon doesn't really go into
Mm.
horror. It's just too much for him. While his wife, on the other hand, does enjoy it. So while I mean I have them both in the same Discord feed, I know she'll like more killing clowns than he will. I know she'll like um what is it? Faces of the Forgotten, another horror story about a face eater, a face stealer. But on the other hand, on the flip side of that, I know David will like the Guardian Circle. It's like Spider-Man without webs because Pericles has almost a precognition because his PTSD turned into almost like a spidey sense. So he
Mm.
can sense danger before it happens. Um, I know David will like a more stuff similar to like Star Wars. So he probably wouldn't like the Guardian not the Guardian Circle. He probably wouldn't like Cloud's World of Chaos because it is more horror. He'll like Project Chrysalis because it's more of that dystopian sci-fi. It's not like sci-fi, but it's dystopian thriller kind of feel to it. It's
Mm-hmm.
um it's a new world order. You have the dictate. Think of a mixture of the Hunger Games with Jason Bourne.
Okay.
So it's like that. You have to find the right people. You can't just go up to there at times you can go up to random people and say, "Hey, I want to ask you about this." But read the body language of the person. What do they dress? How do they dress? How do they hold themselves? What's their facial expression? And sometimes not every person is approachable as the other. And as someone who can literally talk to anyone about anything at any given time, I read people I read people easily and I know how to pick up topics. That's just how I work.
Great. Thank you for going to that. We're gonna get timed out here very